NLC Social Clash, which we're gonna see right now. That special moment for everyone in the night, where our teams and players fight against each other on social media, bringing the hottest memes and compilations in videos as well. And at the end of the day, our production is going to award them with points. First place is going to take 5 points, second one will take 3, and third place will take 1 point. And Dusty already have a point, so that means we are not allowed anymore to take away our social manager.
I really hope we could do that, honestly. I really hope we could get him away. Also, can we do predictions for this? Like me and Jake just predict who will
I'm going to be... My
today?
thing for this is I like to do the thumbs up or the thumbs down like I'm Caligula.
Okay,
you know,
who do you think is going to take it today?
I think Riddle will definitely be in there. I think they won't be first this time around. I don't think I've seen a banger from CJ, so I think it's more like he's made some solid memes. It's a second. And there was one team in particular that I think made a good video that I can't remember, but I believe that I know someone has taken over for Dusty social media and has been doing a better job, so I believe they might sneak into third again. But for first place, I'm going with X7 because I can't remember another team that has made a banger.
Okay, so you say Dusty third, you said Riddle second, and then X7 first. Is that it?
Yes.
Thank you so much. Let's see what is going to happen. In third place, it is the Nuriki. Nuriki with this one. Call an ambulance, but not for me versus Singularity. They almost took them down, but Azitor yet again pops off as a hyper carry, and this awards them 1 point on a social media social clash.
For me to look at the image, I have to look through Jake, who just looks completely stone-faced. Not a single emotion is on that man's face when I'm trying to look at the graphic. It's beautiful.
Now we slow down, we look at him.
What is it?
What is it? Thumbs up or thumbs down? No, you don't say anything. It's only thumbs, you told me.
Just do it.
But it's still 1 point for you guys. You guys did amazing on the NLC Social Clash. Let's move on to the second one. You think it's Riddle, and exactly, I mean, I never thought you got this one, by the way. I never thought you would, and you didn't. The second one is going for Vanir. Okay, time to sleep. Spring playoffs versus Dusty. A classic. Vanir getting completely destroyed, like they did on the previous day of the week. Duckling.
I mean, I watched this on the train towards the studio. I thought it was a pretty decent meme. To be honest, is it second place worthy? I'm turning into Jake here. But you know, I want to say I very much appreciate. I think Vanir as a whole are one of the teams that actually do good content. Thank you very much, Vanir. So even though this isn't the biggest banger from them, they do good content.
We have something.
So I'm not going to talk about this. I'm not like a massive fan of this. One thing I will say is I was scrolling TikTok today and I saw Vanir on my For You page. Shout out to whoever does the TikTok for Vanir. It was a thing of it was when Noodle and Sahira are on the roster and they're talking about explaining how Aphelios works. That was a banger. And they got like 4K likes as well, so someone's doing a good job. You get a thumbs up for that. Like, I'll include that in this as a thumbs up.
Okay. Finally, the judge can.
I love Vanir, dude. Like Vanir do a really good job.
3 points for Vanir. And the last one, first place of the NLC Social Clash for day 14 of Summer Splits. You think it's X7?
It's not going to be X7, is it?
Actually,
it is?
No, it's not. It is Riddle with the video of Let's Hope X7 are ready to face us later on today in the NLC, explaining how the team works before the game. Kick it!
I've watched this before, actually. It's the classic. They're even roasting their social media manager. Oh, that was actually very good.
No one is safe on this one. This was a banger from Riddle. This awards them 5 points. Okay. Everybody slow down. The judge is looking. Oh, there's a little smile.
Dude, I feel like a really bad guy, but like, this is good, but it's like, I've seen it so many times before, so many teams have done this. Like, it's good, but like...
You don't talk, you just use thumbs.
Yeah.
Dude, I'm sorry, like, no. Like, not for me, man.
Damn.
Sorry.
I'm disappointed. I thought it was a banger.
I thought
It
was
is.
very
It's
good
a
as well.
banger on it. I like it, and it's like I like how they tailored it to the team.
You know what?
specifically.
I'll give them 5 points nonetheless because I'm the host. So let's look into the standings of NLC Social Clash on day 14. Riddle in first place. I mean, CJ is just racking on those points, at least on NLC Social Clash. In second place is going to be X7, Vanir Team Singularity. And down at the bottom, we have Dusty. They're alive, they're alive, they're alive.
Look,
Yeah.
I see Astralis in 5th with 5 points.
Okay.
And I have to say, please step up your game for the whole of Denmark. Do it. I know you have a coach who, when I worked with him, used his bald head as a crystal ball for our staff announcement. He got in a cardboard box and his head got oiled up by his assistant for a staff announcement. The man has so many ideas for great content. Please utilize Vandetto's beautiful bald head and get some points on the board.
There you go, we got our own bald heads.
We should start using that for predictions, actually.
I was going to say that, but I couldn't. That was a good segment. By the way, there's a meme going on the social media for the NLC, a template for our own cast when I met the weird guy. So use that one, and maybe you can get something on the next week. I'll put you in, guys. Don't worry. Moving on into the last game of the day. It's going to be Astralis versus MNM. You flinched, I saw it. This is an interesting game because MNM needs this victory to run away from relegations, while Astralis can keep climbing. What do you guys think? Where should we look?
Let's just put this plainly. This is where the friendliness between me and Duckling ends, unfortunately. This is Denmark versus the UK.
Yeah.
This is a nation. This is a pride of the nation. Unfortunately, I don't get to, when it's Excel versus Astralis, I can sit here and be like, yeah, this is going to go great. MNM not doing as well, but I feel like, come on, boys. You got Soft and Chemera in there. Those are my guys. I've known those guys for years. They wouldn't let me down, surely.
Surely. What about you?
Well, all I have to say is, Sov, Chemera, Calum said no to Tricked before they won a split. And then we got Texa instead on Tricked. We then won a split. So I'm just saying, Tricked, Texa, Vandetto, they'll do it again.
The biggest problem with Danish people is that they don't know that they sound like that, and he's talking absolute rubbish there. For me, the UK, with a preeminent kind of esports country, I mean, you talk about some of the best players being from Denmark, but what, yeah, they are from Denmark. Yeah, the best players are.
UK, well, you have K-Drama, a man who
Best
cancels
players.
ultimate.
Alfari's from UK, mate.
Yeah, Alfari.
He's the best top laner in the world.
Fifth place, LEC? Is that all I'm hearing?
Looking into this game, what sort of champions can we look for, and specifically, what sort of lanes should we be looking? You talked about the jungle, about Soft. What about Texer? That is going to be an interesting matchup. Texer has been really active in the jungle, if I may.
If I think about these two players, the #1 champion that immediately springs out is Lee Sin. But I think Taxa is a lot more likely to pick up the Lee Sin. These guys are highlight players on Lee Sin. I feel like Taxa is like, I know in the previous split it was like games where like he would just pull out Lee Sin and you'd be like, oh, this is such a bad pick here, but he just finds like the 40-minute like flash kick or whatever. Soft's a similar player. Soft to me is like, it's annoying to see some of these games from him because I know that he's one of probably the most strong early game junglers in the entire league. But he's just not like, he's kind of faltering a lot in the early game, to be honest with you. I don't know how much of that relates to like just the general team setup or like the champions he's playing. He's obviously playing like a lot of body burst, stuff like this. Whereas like when he played on Macro, for example, he was playing more stuff like Hecarim. You don't really see that from him here. So yeah, Soft Jam, man. Love you, bro. Let's see some Lee Sin, man.
Let's keep talking about the matchup as we go into the champion select, and we can develop a study going from that one. I'm not, you deserve some peace. So I'm going to jump into champion select right now. Astralis versus MNM. No, don't Jake. Oh, you'd hate to do that.
But I mean, for me, obviously, Tex is very exciting. You mentioned it in the center. I'm glad you highlighted it. He hasn't been playing it that much recently in competitive as he's shifted more to that facilitator role, but he is insane on the champion. But I want to drag it down towards the mid lane. Sencox has had the week of his life in the NLC last week, and I hope that he can continue that here today. Put him on some carry canvas. The man is in the form of his life at the moment, it feels like. He's really refound that 2016 Worlds Sencox form, and I want him to keep utilizing that as they look for going 9-5.
I mean, he can do it in the NLC. Can he do it on a rainy night against Chimera's Swain? That's what I have to ask you. You know,
Yeah.
In Stoke as well, it could be.
Swain has been a menace on Chemera specifically. I think Swain is Chemera right now.
He's got the Swain flu. And, you know, you've got to do the migraine skank if you want to get away from that.
Bands are coming in hot. GP and Senna to wrap it up on both teams' eyes. Sometimes get lost. As we're looking for more Kalista on the bot side. A lot of focus on the bot side as well because Michigo is a beast with those early game champions and carries. Even the Chemera. It's not offensive, yeah, it can actually make it work.
Yeah, you can see in a lot of their games for MNM. I feel like Michigo is very much at the precipice of almost their victories. A lot of the time, it's you know, it's either Chemera or Michigo in a lot of these games stepping up. I feel like Calum, obviously, is someone we put highlights towards. No surprise to see then that the Kalista is something that's getting taken away. Wouldn't be surprised to see some other bans directed towards him, but I think you've got to take away some of these R1, R2 priorities. This is where we see that B1 thing. But I think Gangplank getting taken away on blue side, I feel like you don't want to B1 it because we've seen that get punished heavily. I previously, the last day we had on broadcast, I can't quite remember what it was, but it was a pick that got picked into it, and it was really, really bad. I feel like you take that away because you know that Calum's going to opt in towards that. It's obviously a champion that Carlson wants to play as well.
The big counter versus GP is Kale.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, you kind of don't want to set that up for just being locked in. That is exactly what happened actually. It was Kale into GP. Yeah.
One thing that I instantly noticed looking at this draft is that the bear is open, and it's something we have seen Taxo play a couple of times.
Dude.
But the Gnar also open. I kind of wanted to talk about Carlson's champion pool as a whole, but the Gnar is one of his more stable champions that he is very good at.
Split, yeah.
He has really popped off on the champion in the summer split, and while he had some cheesy picks I was hoping to talk about, I'm very happy seeing this for him.
Yeah, I mean, for me, it's like, not to take it away from it, I feel like everyone can have pop-up performances on Gnar. This champion is like so... I feel like this champ needs a nerf, to be honest with you, because I feel like it's in a position whereby you can pick it every game pretty much and just kind of perform into a lot of lanes that you wouldn't have been able to before durability patch.
Oh, here comes the early and the late as well. If you want to play for someone, Michigo is there with the Draven right now. So we can look for counters on the bot side versus the Draven. What do you reckon they can bring in? Because Chrisberg is a beast. So the bear could be helpful to set up those ganks, but what sort of AD carry would be useful to take that sort of advantage?
I mean, they have already locked in the Israel, but...
I was looking at you, yeah.
I think the debate is very interesting in terms of the Volibear, right? Because the Volibear can very easily close the gap, but Draven is one of the AD carries that is somewhat able to deal with him with the E, actually helping create a bit of distance, so making it a bit harder for the Volibear. But in the end, obviously, the Volibear, a strong champion, a good response, I would say, and he is able, if he plays it correctly, to shut down Michigo.
I disagree entirely on Ezreal versus Draven, but continue.
Well, I feel like it's two different directions. You want to make a decision, right? You want to, either sack the lane somewhat and just play to scale. You can go for a Rakan later, maybe on if we get it through the second ban phase. See the Braum getting banned here. I feel like once you go the Ezreal, you are going for that roaming support. You're realizing you're not going to be able to contest in the early 2v2 because you're against the Draven.
Yeah.
So for me, MNM, you need to ban something that roams here. So I think it makes sense somewhat to ban the Braum because you've gone for the Nautilus. Now's where you ban the Rakan, I think.
And I think they're going to play for Syncax. You were talking about that. If they pick the Ezreal, they want to play it safe versus Draven. So maybe we can see a carry on the mid lane to try and counter that Swain if he appears. This is a way, well, it's banned away, so no more Swain. What else can Chemera play to make face-to-face with Syncax?
I mean, for me, I would look towards something more standard magey for Chemera. One champ that I really associate him with is if the Corgi doesn't get banned, that's obviously a possibility, but the Orianna as well. I mean, he's more, to me, the less flashy player, but the more reliable. He's always there to add something, and when he gets good teamfight tools, he is always really good at using the Shockwave, getting some good packages in, or whatever, really. That's the main thing I remember from Chemera in NLC Division 2, really being good on the Corgi and being able to decide a lot of teamfights thanks to his good package placement.
I feel like for me, Chemera is a player that just kind of flits up and down really heavily in terms of, you have all these memes around him being like the Scottish faker, and sometimes he lives up to that name wonderfully. Like in terms of some of his Swain performances, I feel like he's completely 1v9. But then other games he feels kind of absent, and I feel like it's depending on like what Chemera we're going to get here and what champion can facilitate that start. We've seen him do it on Swain. Can he do it on other picks?
Look at the bans. We have Lissandra, we have the Swain. So two picks that could deal with Yachty as well.
Lissandra's locked. I knew it. I told you.
It's going to happen. It's going to happen.
Wukong top. You talked about Wukong top earlier today.
It's popping on Division 2, and there we go. We got to see it on the top lane. I hope it's not Lissan top lane, please. But yeah, Wukong versus the Nod, this works wonders.
Oh my god, this is so Giga Brain from MNM.
That is very smartly drafted, actually. That is very, very big brain from MNM.
Well played to Caracal Jr. Caracal Sr. must be so proud right now. This is absolutely tremendous from him. He's done. This is 500 IQ.
But I mean, it's Astralis. Vandetto, he always knows what's going to happen. He's always 5 steps ahead. I've seen into his head. So he knows that this would be coming, and he's drafted the Silas instead. I've looked into the crystal ball. Regardless, though, I'm very much happy for the Silas. It's a champ that really is able to take over. If he gets the early lead, he can snowball the game, and Syncax, as I said, has been in good form recently. Very interested for the support now, because they're hovering on towards this Alistar, but it would surprise me if that's the lock-in. They are swapping it over to Leona instead of something we haven't seen as much recently, but a good Roma.
She was buffed on 12.12b as well, so this could bring a little bit more damage to this team, because looking into the damage, you have the Silas for AP, Ezreal is like a mix, you have the Gnar. Is there any champion that you can look in and say, well, this is the carry?
Well, Chemera's got R5 here, and Chemera...
Astralis. I'm talking about Astralis. You look into that team, do you find a carry there?
I think right in the moment, though, one thing I just want to touch on is, yeah, we spoke about this R5, it's been left to Chemera. Chemera, obviously dubious questions surrounding his champion pool, what he can pick out here. In a bind, in a situation, and he's gone for the Cassiopeia. I think the W Miasma is going to create a myriad of problems for Astralis' kind of composition. You've got the Volibear, you've got the Silas coming into, you've got Gnar as well, Leona obviously as well. Cassio, a good pick here. I think in terms of lane counter, in terms of lane matchup as well, pretty decent lane for Cassio from what I understand as well.
This is a big counter though, Clean.
Yeah, I mean, for me, what I really notice is the fact that it's a pretty good ultimate for Sencux to steal. He is able to take away that petrifying gaze, and if he's able to use that, he can definitely see, look on the positive sides of the matchup. But obviously, if we're talking predictions, I can see they are going that way because we're almost done with the draft. I'm still going to go with Astralis. It's always going to be an Astralis win.
It's an Astralis for you.
MNM, man, you've got to throw a Molotov into the marshmallow and just set fire to these Danish forests. Let's do it, baby.
That's a way to look into this matchup as we get the Cassiopeia for the last game of the day. For the last time, gentlemen, let's toss it to initialize.
Hang on a second. Did Don Jake just advocate for caramelized climate change by default?
Caramelized climate change. That's like almost worse than standard climate change.
They are the lungs of the world, friend.
You're turning them into delicious confectionaries.
Yeah, gotta be aware of our arboreal friends in the form of the...
arboreal friends?
Trees. I assume some of them are arboreal.
Chimera has suddenly become an Ivern main on me, and I hadn't realized, but here we are.
I have never played that champion to my knowledge, but maybe one day I will.
Maybe now you will.
It's also, funnily enough, completely irrelevant to what's happening on screen here, of course. There was a lot of characterization of players and a bit of a recap of the history of some of our players' trajectory, particularly inside of MNM, Sof and Chemera, well known within the UK scene, and then, of course, Div 2 most recently, too. Sof getting that Lee Sin. Typically, very good early game jungler. From his history, was recapped, and this game has the tools to do so on the Lee Sin. Of course, Lee Sin, not the best champion in comp right now, but it is still something to get things rolling early.
One of the best things to do right now, though, is get onto the Rift, though, because I believe production have got us loaded in and ready to go. Oh, listen to that little bit of a track coming in as well. I appreciate that choice in sound design. Zooming on through down the mid lane, it is a Death Star run of sorts as we go swooping down the various sites and scenes.
You worry about the champions, I'll worry about the towers.
That was so on point. I cannot begin. There we go. Still, no Vader in his TIE fight to come and cause us some trouble this time around, but we have got a stars in the stars, literally, because Astralis over on that left-hand side alongside MNM.
You know as well as I do, is a TIE advanced, not a TIE fighter.
I do, in fact, know that. That's fair. I apologize for letting you down on my Star Wars lore there.
Yep, it is still a Tachyon ion engine. That's what it is.
The fact that I'd actually forgotten that's what the TIE Fighter / TIE General engines are. They make cool noises.
I remember doing some stuff about tachyons in a physics degree. Can't tell you what they do. They're a particle of some kind, but...
They're the ones that travel through time.
Well, look. Well, everything travels through time in some sense.
These will travel backwards through time.
About it.
Was that
traveling through River, which is actually slightly more tangible than the human construct, which is time, is MNM's bot lane and Cassiopeia. And of course, the Cassiopeia, very interesting pick too, because I look at a lot of champions which can get on top of that Cassiopeia, but if you ever miss that mark and you get Miasma'd, someone like that Leona is going to have a really hard time. That mid-jungle duo, if they're stuck on that Miasma and they get ulted into it, that is so rough. I think effectively what Sof is here to do in the early games, just to make sure that Chemera isn't going to get absolutely piled on in the mid lane. Hopefully Shredder can help in that regard too, as Nautilus, one of the premier roaming supports. With that early pressure, any carry of that Draven, because he can already taking control of the wave.
And honestly, you know, we've already seen a few dive-heavy comps with, I don't know, a lack of really unavoidable engage, sometimes getting a little punished when they try to go for the dives. I'm reminded of Bifrost game where they were really struggling to get through all the slows and fields of danger to get onto key carries earlier on in the day. And of course, see whether Taxa and the rest can manage it as this game goes on, as A little bit of trading going on early here in the bot lane, but nothing too crazy right now.
And now, a lot of things to touch on as well, because we talked about the Cassiopeia. I mean, MNM going for a very different kind of draft. Of course, the Wukong in the top lane too, something that Archram called out because that happened in Div 2, in terms of the Wukong in the top lane. Of course, still going to be a big team fight meta. So MNM playing around, stuff a little bit away from the accepted norm of what's happening in solo lanes. Really interested to see what they do with this level 3 wave crash dive on bot side though, because Shredder has struggled a little bit in Div 1, I think it's fair to say.
Yeah, I mean, we've seen
awkward games, but now they have that wave crash dive. Shredder has a chance to make something happen on the map. Astralis ping it out, but what they're doing is just hiding in fog of war right now and looking to get some vision down to track that jungle path of Taxa potentially.
And honestly, MNM fall into a similar category for Nariki to me, in the fact they look better than their 3-10 record. We have seen so many half-good games, and by that I mean literally half the game has been played so well, and the other half has been a bit of a disaster. It's been so frustrating to watch
sometimes
this.
the middle half.
Yeah, and it is incredibly
25% at the beginning and the end, which is rough.
And you can see the talent on this team, but it's almost, of course, with the way that this roster shifted, particularly coming into summer, it kind of feels like if this had been the team in spring, and then they come into summer, we might have seen that kind of trajectory be really good for this blip. But unfortunately, they've come in and it's been a tale of what could have been rather than what has been.
That's kind of along similar lines to a team like Singularity as well, particularly in their case because they were meant to be a development roster, but not to harp too much on about them. But you know, MNM, it is just about the case of development too, because these players are trying to develop beyond their current state, and they do need to do that at a pretty fast rate now because they're at 3-10. Even if they won this game, they would be a game behind Nariki. We were saying, after Nariki beat Singularity, it's like, oh, you know, they took this win and they get ahead of MNM, but MNM still have to face Singularity. Maybe it's a strength of schedule thing. Maybe it's just an artificial little bump that'll even out towards the end of the split and they'll be on a similar game score. Well, now Singularity took a win. They actually look fairly strong today in some regards. Not in all of them, but of course many of our teams are prone to making a mistake or two. And Nariki just beat the #1 placed team. And they, you know, as Dan said on the post-game interview, they just played well today. And MNM now can't take any excuses. They have to not just play well, but close out the game in the way that Nariki did today if they want to start escaping that relegation bracket, which they were clear of for most of the split.
And now it's getting a little bit dicier again, and it's been a day of upsets, let's be frank. We've seen 3 out of our 4 games really go against the common convention of what was expected. Perhaps most dramatically, of course, XL just losing. We saw that one was pretty extreme. Riddle, of course, fell as well. And it leaves us with a question about whether MNM can do the same. And of course, they've come so close before. I won't say they've done it until they've got the Nexus.
Also, the other upset victory of Chimera's Ari build winning against Common Convention.
Well, Singularity bidding Bifrost, well, right at the beginning of the day was pretty damn extraordinary.
Was glad we got ourselves some good games today. It's always very fun. You know, we were talking about Cassiopeia needing to spend a half from Lee Sin.
Flash, Thundering Smash, Abduct, and Abscond, and it's still not going to be quite enough, actually. Flash for Flash now softs into the mid lane. Go try and get into Senkux, who takes a bit of a chunk, but won't quite fall down. And Astralis, remember, have often required their mid laner in recent weeks to be a large part of their playmaking. Is Kiba now in a spot of bother? Sky Splitter comes down. They'll land the Zenith Blade, but a W out will allow us to turn around. That's the Petrifying Gate, but Shredder gets shredded, staying alive right now, but not enough. A Riptide alone will not be enough to save you.
And that was a real mess. It felt like MNM. Initially, again, we kind of talked about the Lee Sin kind of being here in part to make sure that the Cassiopeia doesn't get piled on. Isn't actually there in time. Chemera has to burn a lot of HP and, of course, resources available to him to stay alive. Then they try and overstay a little bit. They think, okay, well, Lee Sin's here now. Maybe we can work around that. But both supports enter the fray, and it's not like Volibear is a slouch in the mid-jungle 2v2. In fact, he is anything but that. And it does really just feel like MNM overestimated themselves as soon as Soft turns up, maybe feeling the onus of having to do something with a Lee Sin. Lee Sin really does fall off, even more so than a champion that also falls off like a Volibear. At least Volibear has slightly more applications currently in team fighting in mid and late game. It used to be the case that Lee Sin always useful for his kick, and he kind of is. But it does feel, actually, the more now that I watch this champion, when you get to Lee Sin to the late game, a lot of those kicks mean a lot less than you think. They look flashy, but they don't achieve that much. Whereas the volley bear genuinely does get on top of their target, keeps them pinned in place. It does that reliably too.
And the floor to execute is just that much lower, right? Like if a volley bear, flash Q is relatively simple to pull off. Pulling an R over a wall, not that mechanically strenuous, whereas Lee Sin, you're often required to make some pretty extravagant plays. And you do have the capability to do them, but it's hard. And unless your name is someone like Ona, who is truly extraordinary on the champion, right? And it seems to be able to make those plays that Lee Sin was notorious for across those years, but just on another level that is often required now with the skill of players in League of Legends as it stands, does make things pretty difficult. Of course, Chemera burnt the flash early on, is having to be a little bit wary about where his wave is right now, and it's not in the best position for him.
Yeah, and this is something that Senkox has been doing very well in regards to NLC mids anyway. It seems like he's uniquely been good at... So this is something which I guess we kind of, between us two actually, we always refer to it as like the Aurelia lane positioning, because this always used to happen. Because you just hold the wave there, they have to walk up, and then they have to just die.
They throw down the miasma, but there is no saving that snake straight into a pair of boots.
Once again, MNM not there in time. Shredder, Mishku, Soft now a hit for 3-person turnaround, but they don't hit that Q.
Wukong's around and actually, having burnt a fair amount there, they're not actually going to be able to contest this Herald especially easily, actually, do I think, Astralis. So they might end up being kill for Herald trade.
Well, see if... Well, I mean, Carlson does have Mega right now, and he has Flash. That always gives them an option. You don't have Volley Barrel. That's a big tool to be taken away. It's not like they have everything out of stock. Either way, they don't find themselves the positioning, and not actually looking to just crash that wave top instead. MNM going to walk away with the Herald at least, which they will need to start trying to even up this gold again.
Indeed, and of course...
Oh no, are they just going to...
Oh, Chemera, it's just a complete...
There's no teleports. Gonna have to wait for Shredder to be there in time. Wave is crashing already, pulling the wave. Chemera's doing the same though.
Doing a fair amount of damage on the Crispo, trying to trade this out best he can. He's got Conqueror stacked. Crispo hopping forward, burns the heal. And he really wants to be involved in this kill. But it's a 4 versus 1, and there is nothing to be done for Chemera.
It is, you know, we mentioned this a little bit in regards to Singularity earlier in the way they played their early game. Of course, they ended up winning that game, but there were still some issues we were talking about. Look, they're making kind of like the right plays. They know they need to be, in that case, it was bot lane, and in this case, too, it is. They were making the right decision, but they were a couple of seconds off. They weren't actually there for when the hammer blow fell, and in that time, again, you can see Shredder is heading down towards bot lane. If he's there for a hook under turret, sure, that's actually fine. You don't have the volley barrel of cooldown to really force the dive, and that's probably Chemera surviving. But Astralis win out on the timing battle. MNM are not there in time again for maybe the 3rd or 4th time this game, including the plays mid lane, and they are suffering for it.
And we saw Astralis falter when their early game didn't work out on Monday. This time it seems to be straight back to what's been working for them, which is making these early plays and doing it pretty cleanly. They're back to punish the snake again. Clearly a hatred of reptiles in this one. Taxa over the wall. Soft's going to be around, so is Shredder, so they might be here in time, debating it and decide against going for the dive this time. I think the vision of Shredder makes them go against that potential play.
And you see that the flash was there on Kiba. He actually soaked up enough XP to get himself a solar flare. Chimera's flash just up now. Makes it much harder to land that play. And again, remember, if you don't land that CC onto the Cassiopeia, that's when things get really, really difficult.
Ace check. Oh, that's going to be the turn in. Soft will ward hop away, but Shredder now left out to dry. Hooks himself away, but in they go with the Stormbringer. Taxa flashes after the flash from Shredder, and now Soft is in danger. But he's not going to get too much more done. The kick doesn't get as much down as they want. A topside. Caleb going very, very low, and Carlson needs to find one more boulder, one more auto, and that's a dead monkey. Hop forward into the Cyclone. Can't quite secure the kill, though.
Close run stuff. Caleb just about healing up enough with pots ticking. Saw that earlier in the day from an on under tower. This time it's a Wukong. Caleb gets away with it. I was actually wondering if a flash auto from Carlson would have been enough, but maybe CC from that Cyclone would have been the end of it. But I mean, Astralis found a bit of a cheat code to dealing with the Cassiopeia. Ooh, what happens if you don't catch me when we dive onto you? Don't dive onto the Cassiopeia. Dive onto someone else when the Cassiopeia is out of range to affect those plays. So MNM get caught off around the fringes, and Astralis, I've been really liking the way that they have played around their mid-jungle and support. You saw it versus Singularity when they absolutely put a poor Oriana into the dirt. 1 and 8 was Mirza. the end of that one game. And yeah, they ended up flubbing some side lane plays after that point. Hopefully Astralis won't be revisiting that kind of eventuality again. But once again, we can see that they are really, really good at making sure enemy mid laners need to be playing respectfully. And then their teammates need to be there playing respectfully too. You are not allowed to snooze as mid jungle when your mid lane is being put under this much pressure. And luckily in this case, MNM managed to just about salvage enough to keep Chemera in lane after the many attempts on his life. But it still put Senkux and crew into a very good position.
Indeed it has, and of course they are the recipients of a lot of this early gold, but MNM with the Herald, with the 2 early Drakes, have certainly managed to get at least something back in their name, and they do have a Draven who's picked up a few stacks at this point, but will need to cash them in at some point, and that adoration is going to go to waste. If they can cash that in, if they can make the Herald play work, and they're running a little out of time, and if Soft needs to drop it now, or it's pretty much gone, actually.
Close.
There it is.
It's actually just been used there. It feels like they have to do so, but of course Astralis will have been timing that too. They call down their jungler in time. Can they actually force them off the Herald?
Yeah, it's done.
Don't even get it to charge up its charge. MNM would love to have that to even up some of their gold score because of those laning advantages, those skirmishing advantage, which has Astralis managed to build up already, but they don't manage to do that through that Herald. They have to lick their wounds and walk away.
Carlson trades in onto Calum, doing a bit of a chunk as the, I'm not sure, what was it? Is it the Underworld Wukong with that slightly echoey laugh there? Some interesting VFX transformations on that one.
I actually really like the Underworld skin line.
It's some really cool stuff.
It's got some really cool stuff. I don't believe Gatekeeper Galio is part of it.
It looks like it should be.
It looks like it should be. Maybe it is. I'm actually not sure. I'm not great at telling you which part. See, if there was a pop quiz on like skin lore, that would be a bit
Don't give
shaky.
Shakarus ideas.
Then again, I'm not going to lie. I think most people would be quite shaky on that at this point. I can tell you about Star Guardian.
Can you? But across all of League of Legends or Wild Rift and Legends of Runeterra? There's some extra ones in there?
There's Orianna in there too now for Wild Rift.
Gwen's in Legend of Runeterra. Soph is in danger in the jungle though. We might have to talk about that one as Chemera is going to be around here. They're going to try and jump onto the snake who's going to get flash Zenith bladed. Kiba, what a gorgeous little turnaround as they were trying to be pinched in the jungle. But MNM are punished in turn.
Oh, Astralis go once again onto that Cassiopeia.
Okay.
Chemera very much out of position in this instance. I feel like some of the others kind of forgive him for. This one was, you had flash, didn't have a stopwatch. At least they didn't blow that flash thing. If you don't have flash, you basically can't lane in this game. Someone is going to come hunt you down. It does feel like MNM just not quite in position in regards to supporting that Cassiopeia, who needs so much help to function in this game. The way I like to actually, we'll see if a skirmish starts up here because
Herald number 2, yes.
Spawned. Let's just check and see if any action explodes here.
Kraken Slayer in for Mishigu. Remember, he's still not cashed in. If he dies, a lot of what you have grappled goes away.
About this. A couple of people have. I believe it was actually Venza that was talking about this one. And gives you a lot of ability to just keep churning through those axes. So, second Herald going to MNM. Maybe they'll get a chance to use this one. That'd be nice.
Carlson is a little shoved up here, but MNM will decide not to go any further, and they've just crashed the wave, as you said, and they'll back out from that one now.
And the thing is, a lot of the time when top laners do die at a side lane, it is because, like, well, I gotta crash this wave, otherwise I don't get access to 3 waves, and that's arguably worse than getting a kill.
That's more. I lose more gold from not dying.
Yeah, and it's the sad state of a top laner, where you sometimes realize that your own life is actually worse than...
I am worth less than this minion wave, it's time.
And of course that ends up flowing into a lot of things across the map when you're sat there going, well, you know, if the wave isn't in XYZ position, then we can't actually fight around these various things on the map, which we are setting up for. Yeah. But Carlson, you know what, actually, let's spend a little bit of time on that, because Carlson in spring came in as a very young player.
Indeed.
And was often put onto Renekton set, playing lane-dominant champions and sat there, getting resources from his team and doing well in a 1v1, but actually when he was on the weak side, when he wasn't really being focused on, kind of suffered. Of course, remember that game versus Riddle, second round robin of Spring Split, where it was against Kekt, who played Renekton into his set and sent him 0 and 5 and a great amount of CS down because he didn't really know how to deal with that situation at the time. He's grown a lot since then. Yeah. I think Carlson has been a real credit to his team, and it's good to celebrate our players, particularly when they are developing, because the ERLs is a great place for development. What's he going to do here, though? Not on the scene of the crime for mid lane. That Herald is going to get used, and it's going to get used mid lane.
This one is a success, and MNM are on the board with the turrets. Mid lane turret nicely secured. It will come in trade for that top lane tier 1, which will go down to Carlson's Bingy. building up. That's the way I'm looking to phrase that. The Mega Gnar. Dragon about to spawn, he'll TP in with 2/3 of that bar available to them, but MNM looking like they want to fight this as well.
So Carlsen's not going to have that recent gold. He's immediately hooked.
Ooh, the turnaround to the Cyclone. They're going to try and get the kill, but nothing is down. The Petrifying Game doesn't get as much down as they want to. What can they get out, though, with those Twin Fangs firing? Mega Gnar to the wall from Carlsen, though, but Michigu's already cashed in. That's a disaster. Already they've got through, but look at the side. Senkux doing his best. He's got a double. Shredder falls. Michigu alive. A hop forwards from Chrisberg gets that one, and while they cash in, Astralis are still the ones on top.
You know what? For a second, I dared to believe, but the stars of Astralis burned bright just enough, at least this time, to win out on that confrontation. Michigu was free hitting for a lot of that, did have items, did cash in, but just wasn't enough. I felt like as soon as Carlsen TP'd in, he thought, oh, well, actually, you know, he hadn't used that gold. He's not going to use a great Mega Gnar at this point, but Senkux just gets into where he needs to be. I mean, Chemera has to flash out immediately, and it feels like it is just a fighting retreat. You know, as Carlsen finally gets back into that play, and Senkux hasn't been shut down. This SAR's continuing to use their mobility, using their ability to stack up that Conqueror, and at that point, DPS check is just won by the bigger wallets of Astralis.
That said, at least Michigu did cash in, so it's not all doom and gloom, just mostly doom and gloom. There's that second item complete to keep him at least somewhat with parity with Chrisberg.
But even after that fight, you get that cash in, you're still down a lot of gold.
Yeah.
At this point, you're down. You didn't even get Soul Point. If you get Soul Point from that, I think you're feeling, you take it as a consolation prize.
Yeah.
It's still pretty bad for you in terms of not being able to control the map, giving up too much gold, whatever. Michigu's probably going to die here too.
Oh, he's in so much danger. That's a decent stand aside, but the True Shot barrage afterwards and the CC chain is absolutely eternal. Eternal left to send him straight into Eternal Afterlife.
You know, when this happened against Singularity, I was like, oh no, it's just mid lane is dying all the time. It turns out just playing mid lane versus Astralis, it doesn't actually matter if you are a mid laner. Just
who is standing
in that
there,
lane
yeah.
is just a bad idea. It is their territory. They play so well around this area of the map, and setting it up with various roams to it. It's not like they're losing anything across the map. Astralis just very good at punishing people who walk up too far there.
Kevin's like, yeah, that's right. You get out of here. I'll order you once. And Kiba goes, okay. Blast comes his way out towards the river. And the rest of Astralis coming to try and get vengeance for that attempted punch. This is bullying all over again. Back alley brawls about to come through his Chrisberg.
It's funny you mentioned that. The last time this happened too, I mentioned the fact that the mid lane was kind of like, because it had to be just emptied, MNM, it's kind of like the empty lot made famous in one of our favorite video games, the Yakuza series.
Absolutely.
And it does feel like an absolute gang brawl here, as Astralis willing to really go toe-to-toe and just throw punches left and right.
Senkux, Dragon of the Danes, stepping up here. Takes that jacket off and ready to brawl.
Played this game series, get ready for a lot of nonsense happening in the next couple of minutes.
I've avoided making Majima references so far. Maybe you're unleashing me here. But for now, instead, we'll look to see how this game plays out. Because honestly, it's been pretty controlled from Astralis. Outside of that fight, we got a little bit dicey. Everything else has been Astralis making plays and largely making them succeed.
Yeah, and it does feel like when Senkux is involved with those plays, it has been a winning play. I really think Senkux has such a glow-up from Spring.
Oh, hugely so. I mean, honestly, so many of our mid laners have. Like, Senkux is right up there, Backlund's right up there.
It's kind of important, actually, because I think back to Spring, and I think, okay, who were the mid laners that really impressed? It effectively was M&S and Tempt. Then you had a couple other players who had their name in there. But to the level of Summer, I don't think that was the case.
No,
I do think that it has been a much less dominant mid lane split in terms of, you know, M&S and Tempt not just running away with every game. And I think that does stand testament to a lot of the laners which have stood up and be counted for in various different roles. They've been playing a lot of different things. Of course, Backlund on the more aggressive champions, a lot of the AP assassins and other things from it. Of course, the Yasuo too being a huge thing.
Ooh,
and,
yes.
Now he's also now my obviously honorary favorite player in the NLC after doing the doing the Ari build he did earlier. Again, the
IS
crazy,
is coming straight through.
Crazy damage one-shots at Ari earlier in the day. But then you look at a player like Senkux as well. He's done it on various different champions, and the Sile has been first and foremost amongst them. He has been such a core member for the team as well.
He's going to try and CC his way out, but he's got a blast going. That throws Caleb into an awkward spot, but he does have a warrior trickster to slip over the wall and out of danger. Baron is, of course, alive, but it's still only 21 and a bit minutes into the game, so it's probably a little early for teams to be seriously considering until a second item comes through. But
the game is starting to slow down, and I will say, again, last time that we saw Astralis kind of slide into this sort of game pattern, they started trying to play around side lanes and got caught a little bit napping when they were trying to, or at least caught a bit lax, I suppose, in side lanes when they were making aggressive plays. They didn't have all their ducks in a row, and they got swatted down. They managed to finish off that game, but that was a real pain point for them. So Astralis slowing down the game, content to play on multiple lanes, but not make big dive, big fight plays on those lanes, rather taking over a lot of jungle camps. It's slowly ticking up the gold in their favor, and it's an uncontested lead, right? Because you're taking those jungle camps, you're not really giving up anything for it because you have your own jungle camps in turn. And that has meant that that tick up of gold is going very much in favor of the Astralis team.
Also want to shout out here a little bit while we have this moment to talk about Taxa, right? A player who we honestly had a lot of criticism for in spring. We were kind of unimpressed with his lack of proactivity early. And
it's kind of funny how we've mentioned that about several Astralis members.
I know, but it was so true. There's been massive growth, because remember, this was a team that missed playoffs by a heavy margin in spring, who were, after the first few weeks, feeling like almost unable to find wins. And then, of course, in summer, they've come in and they've been one of our top contenders. Of course, they've not really been able to hit the top 2, which I'm sure they were looking for, but the improvement has absolutely been there. It's just against some of those teams which have been able to contest them mechanically early. It's gotten a bit difficult. Yeah.
Wondering what was going to happen there.
Oh, definitely something to be concerned about. As actually, he does go straight in, so worthy of consideration. Soft just dies at teleporting in on this, but it'll be a return in trade. Shredder went to look for a potential play, and instead, it's looking like an absolute disaster. How the hell did Chemera get there? They get the shutdown. There's a Cyclone after, but I just don't know what there is to do. The Petrifying Gaze comes through, and they're going to get knocked up, and there's just not enough damage. Dodges the Abscondum Dunk, but a stopwatch keeps them alive, and MNM have gone in and been roasted over their own fire. Marshmallows melt in the enemy jungle.
That's the caramelized climate change we were talking about. It's getting a bit stuffy in here as those marshmallows start getting a little bit burned. Mishigu wasn't even at that play. Chemera really going deep, trying to find that angle. Flashed over after teleporting in, but just couldn't find their mark. And Astralis, once again, finding their own big play. This time it was handed to them. They weren't really the architects of that play, but more than happy to play Demolition on MNM's attempt.
Oh boy, Marshmallows on a silver platter, and then you kind of start us mid-narrative here to say, oh, maybe they go for something, and they really did.
Yeah, I was kind of worried that Soft would get caught out. I didn't think you would actually go in.
Oh, yes.
The amount of damage Chrisberg has is pretty hilarious at this point. Now, Chemera, again, I think this is actually not an awful angle. I think once you commit to that TP, you kind of know you're in the thick of it. You need to kind of play a fighting retreat, and he does fairly well in regards to the amount of gold he has, but you only have that much amount of resources. You have been shut down well, and truly very thorough attempt by Astralis to deal with that. And yeah, once again, it feels like Mishigu, as he has so often been, sad for the guy, looking on in horror as the rest of his team starts to go for ill-advised plays, which he can't really take any part in.
Unfortunately for them, Chemera was about one Twin Fang away from claiming Senkuk's bounty as well, but couldn't quite make it happen.
It wasn't for those meddling kids, and also a stopwatch.
And also a stopwatch, indeed. Being able to stop time is, generally speaking, quite a powerful power.
It is just a human construct. We can go and have a philosophical physics debate if you'd like. We can have that.
We did kind of briefly touch on that one. I don't know whether we're going to have all that much time, of course, as Kiba might be in a spot of bother here. He's going to face check Shredder. I don't know whether they've got the damage on Chemera coming over all the while. That top lane inhibitor is under siege. Solar Flare comes through, and that top lane inhibitor turret falls, and MNM just feel like they lack the damage to even kill a support right now. They're going to hook on attacks out. I don't know whether they want that.
No, pretty sure they don't. Carlson on the flank, and MNM once again having to get forced back. They're having to keep distance away from Astralis. And sadly, they don't have themselves a giant old James Webb Space Telescope to keep themselves in sight of these stars as they continue to up the ante, keep on getting their own leads, and they're now here in force around this mid lane. MNM looking for the flank.
Well, the stars have certainly been shifting blue this game, as has the gold. Taxa gets jumped on, but Kalem already taken to nearly no HP. Soft goes to the backline and straight into the grave. He follows swiftly after. Chemera will scream, but it's only in pain as he falls as well. A double for Chrisberg. And MNM once again fall flat.
On the core of this MNM composition, this mid-jungle just did not get firing off. They didn't manage to get to that helium burst of solar flare-ishness. That's all belonging to Astralis. They've just burned out of MNM, and they are sat here just falling apart as Astralis have done what they have shown to be so powerful for them in this year, and that is tear apart this mid part of the map.
And it's a little bit ironic, probably, that the snake that cannot buy boots has been made into them more times than I can count at this point. Gosh, probably a little cruel, but 1-6, it's been a very rough game for the Cassiopeia.
I will stress, this is a strength of Astralis.
Oh, completely.
Now, I do think that MNM didn't do enough to protect the Cassiopeia, who you know is going to be forced onto at some point. But this is also something that Astralis do uniquely well within the NLC. And you see Soft trying to make those late game plays, but this is why Lee Sin is not really reliable in the late game anymore. It does feel like getting to your targets is such an ordeal, and Astralis more than happy to keep their battle lines. They haven't died on their mid jungle, and they fought so much around them. You would have thought maybe one overstep, maybe something like that, but no, they've just been that much further ahead than MNM, that much quicker to the outplay.
Yeah, well, there's an infinity edge in for Mishigu, but unfortunately I feel Astralis have got beyond that, and there's no Buzz Lightyear on the other team right now. 17-3. They've got 2 of those Drakes, a third spawning in 20 seconds. They've got the Baron, and there's just nowhere to go right now.
It feels like this could be the very last fight. Senkek's making his way over, and how terrifying is that Silas, this player in this league? MNM really, really would have loved this win to keep themselves at least within that one game of Nariki, keep themselves out of that relegation bracket, but Astralis trying to push them down, not give them the opportunity.
Felt like there was something in the air, in the water today about the upset, something in the air around MNM, who'd had so many close calls across the split, but honestly, this game has been not close at all, as Mishigu steps forward to pick up an axe and takes half his HP bar in trade almost.
You can see that Kiba is still taking damage, and again, you overcommit into MNM. Maybe there's a chance, maybe the spinning axes, maybe the Cassiopeia can do enough work. I mean, even a few items on Cassiopeia, even if they're behind the curve, can do something.
They're going to try and make this one happen. Kiba goes golden, stays alive, and the turnaround means that Shredder dies again. Caleb looking for the flag, though. Maybe this could be something, but Senkux already removes the jungler. Lee Sin is blinded by death. Mishigu trying to trade out with a Mega Knight. I don't think he wins that one. Chrisberg just about getting out alive as well, and Astralis win this one with their wallets because they are mighty and full of about 30,000 tons of gold. They'll move in to secure themselves a 9th win in the summer split.
Come down like a neutron star. MNM not ready to withstand that. MNM not able to keep pace, sitting down at that second to last spot.
Nothing to be done, and MNM, having witnessed Nariki winning the game before, are going to be sort of wiping sweat off their brow. Relegation's loom, and that's not what they needed.
And you know, looking at today's games, I was a little bit kind of here and there. I thought, actually, you know, are these games going to deliver? There's a lot of potentially one-sided matchups on paper. They have well and truly delivered. They've had implications, and now we're looking at this table, and we're starting to look at these teams getting really, really worried coming into the last few weeks.
We've only got 4 games in the regular season remaining now. Lot left to play for, but a lot of teams suddenly getting increasingly nervous as the last few moments of spring, or summer, I apologize, remain among us. But we've still got the last few moments of this segment and day of commentating and games to go. We've got the desk to take it away for these last little bits.
Thank you so much. Congratulations on the entire day, folks, as the duo once again shines. But not only the duo, but also Astralis, the way they were playing in. Are you okay, Don Jake?
It's just so sad to lose to Denmark. I just don't know. I don't know. We beat them at the World Cup. I guess that was enough for me for the moment.
World Cup? What are you talking about, mate?
Sorry, the Euros, sorry.
Oh, yeah. Don't remind me.
I'm thinking about the future.
Yeah.
What's going on?
I'm thinking about this game, the way Astralis shine on this one. As soon as they get the hold of that early game, there was no stopping. And this solidifies why Astralis is at the top of the standings.
Yeah, and I mean, one thing that was for sure that was that Denmark didn't dive this game. It was Astralis playing a phenomenal game of League of Legends. I am extremely pleased with Texas Volibear. I approve my good old friend. And Senkux, he continues his good form. I can't wipe the smile out of my face. That was a clean, confident win. And they did not look anywhere near the Astralis that, to be honest, got embarrassed against JDX last Monday.
And there's more to talk about. The idea that they picked a few picks blindly so they could be countered. And even then, it was not enough for MNM. So this is one of those days where MNM are just not capable of playing. And this is why they're at the bottom of the standings, maybe facing relegations.
Yeah, for me, I think kind of the metaphors that Initialize was drawing for, like a lot about Medusa, a lot about gold, it really did feel like that scene in Game of Thrones where the Viserys gets the vat of gold pour upon his head, but at a certain point it just became an economic threshold that MNM weren't able to get against. You're down so much gold, they're trying to go for these plays, Soft's trying to find these Lee Sin kicks, he's not quite getting the angles, and yeah, MNM, it's an unfortunate loss, and I feel like with such little time remaining, improvements have to come quick, and they have to come, yeah.
They have to face now the future, as we have to face the interviews with Vandetto from Astralis after an amazing game. Welcome back to the studio. We have a lot to talk about today. This is an astonishing victory for you guys, really clean as well. A good comeback from the previous day on Monday. So tell me, you guys are still looking for the second seed, or you're still focused on the third one to make sure you can pick the team? What are your objectives now?
I mean, we want to win as many games as we can. Obviously, we want to get the second seed. We still need to play against Riddle. I'm looking forward to playing against them again. Facing off against Don Vandetto. Him and I, we go way back. Way back, like early Danish seasons. So it's going to be a pleasure to get the revenge.
Another thing that I want to ask you is, this is a different Astralis, not even close from what we saw in the spring split. So obviously, there's a lot of work, blood and sweat, not only from the players, but from you as well. And I want to ask you, to guide us, what was the most difficult part of coming into this roster and making them the stars they are today, like helping the team reach the point of where they are today?
That's a really great question. The most, well, I think particularly for this roster going in, you know, we obviously didn't change too many things, only support and myself. And I think we just needed to build up the confidence, and we needed to work on strong mental preparation for games. And we've had a hard time with that. I think even halfway into the split, we still had a lot of things to work on. And I mean, it's obviously getting better and better. And hopefully for playoffs, it's going to be, you know, completely perfect. I mean, not perfect, but, you know.
In a different level from what we saw on spring split.
Yeah, and even earlier in the split as well. Because I feel like in the start there was some shakiness as well. Some games that should have been won. For example, against Riddle, a 50-minute game with the backdoor and everything.
You might get revenge, though. We might get revenge on that one as we move onward to playoffs. Duckling.
Yes, first of all, good to see you again, Vandetto. I've missed you. But what I want to know is, you know, it's been a couple rough games. I watched the Singularity game and obviously Denmark versus Denmark, but still was a bit of a shaky performance then. Sadly, had to see you guys get clapped, to be honest, by JDXL. How did you bring the boys back from two, you know, pretty shaky games to make this very, very clean game overall?
I think, I mean, as I already said, like we've been working a lot on the mental aspect of performance and also non-performance. I think the guys did well themselves. I think the Singularity game, I mean, we're just kind of relieved because we were kind of like, oh no, we don't want to be, I mean, we're not saying that, but maybe some people were thinking we don't want to be the first team to drop a game. So there was kind of a lot of pressure on us, right, as the huge favorite. And so, yeah, basically just relieved that game went through. And then against JDXL, I mean, that was such a big stomp that, you know, we were like, okay, whatever. Let's just go next. We were kind of like coping with the fact, I mean, not coping, but saying like, oh, but if that bot gank goes differently, you know, everything is different. And then, yeah, we use that to move on.
Wait, but at this point now it's about focusing on those best of fives. As we move on to playoffs, we just need to know the standings where you guys finish. And so far, Astralis are going to the stars. Finally, I can say this in League of Legends. I'm really happy. Great. So thank you so much for this interview and all the work you have done. See you soon.
Thank you, guys. Thank you for having me.
Thank you, Vandetto.
Bold buff, baby.
It's a hard work as well. Picking a team that was always at the verge of victory, but never reaching it, and making that team go into the top of the standings. Not even playoff standings, no, top of the standings. This is really important to point out.
Yeah, I feel like it's a real development in terms of spring to summer for me in NLC. One of the big problems I feel like in NLC last split was you had very top-heavy teams. I feel like you had the top three that were very separate from the rest of the league. Now, I think it's a general narrative we have around a lot of teams that they're a lot better than their standing show, which to me speaks to a more of a burgeoning middle of the pack, more of that outside of the playoffs contingent, and the league are getting better. And the general level of the league increasing is really a good sign just for the NLC and for the viewership as well, for the viewers.
And for the fans of Astralis and Denmark as well, it's a big accomplishment. And I know you take a lot of pride when you watch this new Astralis.
Yeah, and You know, to me as a Dane, right? We had just won the league with Tricked, and you know they kept Texa. One of the key parts of that victory, I know from working on that roster behind the scene. And okay, he's a great guy to build around. They then got Senkox in. They had Carlsen, the young Danish talent, remaining on the roster. Chrisbeck, who had been solid for Nordevent. They had Vendelbo as well back then. Like, it was a really, really good team. The expectation was so high, and to see him then just crumble and really fall under the pressure was heartbreaking as a Dane, because that was really our best hope. I mean, Guldborg as well, I would say. He was having to sit here in the studio watching it. But yeah, it was a heartbreaking loss, right? So they brought Vandetto back in. They brought in Keeper, who has been in the Danish scene as well, and the UK scene as well for a long, long time as a jungler. So seeing this roster, come back to their strength, play to the level we know they were able to play at before as well, but they just weren't able to reach it. So it's very good to see this team finally succeed, and it feels so good as a Dane to have a team that I can trust to make it far here in the
We
NLC.
work with the team almost completely standing the same. It's a good job from everyone on that team. Now we need to look into MNM. So that's why we're going to bring in Chemera, the mid laner, after this game. This is one of the most complicated games, so I'll make this interview a little bit short. But at this point, losing versus Astralis, looking into the schedule, do you feel like relegations are in place for you guys?
I mean, you always have to have it in the back of your mind. I feel like, honestly, I feel really bad about today. Like, I completely ran this game down, and it's unplayable for my team. But aside from that, I think we've shown a lot of really good stuff over the past few weeks. We've had a lot of really close 50-50 games, and I mean, I think we are probably better than our standing show. So I'm not worried about relegations. I still think we have the ability to, win a lot of games for the rest of the split. So we're still taking it one game at a time. I'm not really focusing on relegations, and obviously playoffs aren't really going to be a thing. So just one game at a time.
It's about getting away from that relegation spot. And it's interesting that we were going to talk about this, because I did a lot of interviews with Division 2 on the previous, yesterday. And they were talking about, Singularity, good to go. MNM, we don't want to face them. We don't want to face them because when they show light, you guys actually show a really good light. So there's something going on in the team. Can you highlight it and see how to fix it, though?
Yeah, I mean, our biggest issue just now is our consistency. And I think the problem is, I don't think you can consider yourself a good team until you're consistent. And even though we've had a lot of really, really high highs, we've beaten X7 twice, we've taken Bifrost to their Nexus towers, we've even our last game against Astralis, we're taking even gold 30 minutes in. These are our highs. We can win against probably any team in the league. Maybe Excel is a bit above us, but if you're not consistent enough to do this week in, week out, every game, then we're not a good team yet. So I mean, we just got to focus on that one step at a time, and I think consistency is the big factor, and once we can get that down, then we'll be a good team. So yeah,
I agree with you. If the match, or if the way this worked was best of 3, I don't think you guys would be at the place of where you are. Because I think on the best of 3 or best of 5, you guys will be able to show what MNM truly is. Let's see how it goes throughout the rest of the split. Run away from those relegations, because you guys have talent, you guys have skill. I'll see you soon, Chemera. Thank you so much for the
Cheers. Thanks very much, guys.
Bye, Chemera.
See you, bro.
It is a rough one because it's a best of 1. We always talk, it was Jeppe saying, you need a little bit of cheese on every single game. And on the best of 1, if you get caught out of position, well, there goes the game. It's really hard to come back versus these teams. And you talk about it. Summer Split has been really good for the teams to showcase themselves. And I believe the skill level of Summer Split has risen a lot.
Well, I think if you talk about the prevalence of the narrative that a lot of these teams are sort of better than their standings might suggest, it's one thing to have that around one team, but I think when you talk about that being a narrative that surrounds multiple teams, it speaks to a league that the strength has elevated. And I feel like that's a really, it makes me really happy just to be able to see a league now where it's not just top dominated. Things can happen, things can go differently. It's not just on set from the start. There's a development in the team, and as much as obviously I'm not happy to see Astralis win today because of it makes this Danish guy next to me really happy. I'm happy to see an Astralis that are back at a position whereby they're contesting these top spots. There are more and more teams that are contesting these top spots, and it makes for a better league. It makes for a better watching experience.
I'll say it. I'm starting to get the copium that we might do good at EU Masters.
We always do.
And then comes LFL.
Yep.
Hard again.
Let's look into the standings of today because we had a lot of surprises, so it kind of shifted but stayed the same. Different, but same, but different. JDXL still in first place with 2 games ahead of Riddle. Dusty are tied up with Riddle now. Astralis 1 game away from second seed, and X7 getting closer as well. Bifrost took a beating today, and Vanir couldn't pull themselves through, which ties them up with Nuriki. And then at the bottom of the standings, we have MNM Gaming. Look at that, look at that. Singularity with the victory.
Hey, they did get the win in the end. But for me, what is interesting about the standings at the moment is the fact that the second place race is well and truly on. With Riddle losing 2 games now over these weeks, Astralis can get that spot. Dusty at the moment looking like the favorites to actually overtake them, in my opinion. X7, with how they've been looking recently, could actually also make a good run. And I mean, Bifrost, they are definitely outsiders for it. They would have to pick up some pace, but it is theoretically still possible, which I find interesting with just 4 games left to go, that pretty much any of our playoff teams could still get that top 2.
A lot could happen on these standings as we approach the final days of the summer split. But before we end the day, we need to look at what play we need to highlight with the play of the day by MasterCard. You want to see it? Let's see which one is it.
Mandaya said something about hearing that.
Against Bifrost in such an unsuspecting fashion, I feel like. You never would have anticipated their first win of the split. We knew that it was maybe coming. We knew it could be around this time. It was this time around in the spring split. But against Bifrost, against, you know, Diamonds Are Forever. And this is the play of the day. It's just singularity able to take their first win of the split, and against Bifrost no less.
This is Bifrost, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely incredible. Gobsmacked.
Astonishing.
And I feel like this was the start of everything going strange for the day.
It was.
It was true.
This was the start where, like, I feel like, you know how like people have theories about like we were all in the Matrix or whatever, and like we live in a simulation and it's all related back to the thing. This was like the inception point. Bifrost losing to Singularity. From this point onwards, everything just nothing was the same again.
I think it's the same thing we highlighted right in the pre-show, that every time Singularity loses, the pressure on the team going up against them becomes so much higher. We heard Vandetto talk about it actually in the interview when they played against them last week, that they could definitely feel a bit of pressure. You don't want to be the first one to drop the ball against Astralis. And I think for Bifrost, you know, having the pressure of already needing to perform to secure that playoff spot and then going up against the 0-13 Bifrost was simply too much pressure for them to handle. And Singularity played well and got their first win.
But we're still not out of surprises, so let's look into the schedule for the next week. We only have 4 more games for each team, so this is going to be interesting. We'll start up with, this is from today. Yes, it is. Bifrost took down, Singularity took down Bifrost. This is a summary of what happened today, but I would like to look into the next one. Thank you so much. Riddle will have to take on Vanir after their loss of today. Vanir did need this one to face off versus Bifrost. Dusty will take upon the new team Singularity, as Astralis will look into the new X7. Bifrost, after the defeat of today versus Singularity, will have to face on JDXL after their loss today. This is really awkward. And to wrap it up, Nuriki versus MNM. Whoever takes this one might run away from relegations.
I mean, this is a banging day of matches going up. You mentioned it, the battle for relegation really between Nuriki and MNM Gaming. Bifrost fighting for their playoffs lives against JDXL. If Vanir win against Riddle Esports, the pressure will surely be on Bifrost to get that win. Astralis versus X7, one of our top 2 battles here, really. And then Team Singularity, will they continue that role? And will Dusty stumble in the battle for second place up against the last place Singularity?
Jake, come on.
Yeah, I feel like...
Which one? Pick it.
This is, if I'm going to pick one, I feel like what I'm going to be looking towards is redemption in the England versus Denmark battle, Astralis versus X7. I feel like X7, you know, you're going to be hard pressed to find a win against these guys. These guys are really easy.
Easy.
Yeah, 20 minutes, Astralis got it.
Delusional in Denmark. It both starts with D, you know. It's,
Final words of the day. I'll start with you, Duckling. It's good to have you back, but what is your final words for today?
Final words? Well, I mean, thank you guys for having me. It's been great. I've been here twice now in 2 weeks. I've loved every minute. I've loved every minute. Thank you, Ashram, for making me look horrible today when you didn't allow me to speak. But other than that, it's been a great experience.
I'm allowing you now.
Yeah, and that's the thing.
And it's enough. Jake, what about you?
Archeron Gilleth and Archeron Taketh. I want to say just final words. I appreciate just all the kind words that people have had towards me. And it's been a really lovely week being here both days. I feel like it's a big step up being in a studio and to be guided through it so wonderfully by all of the lovely casters and then the like all right host, I guess.
An okay-ish.
He's an okay-ish.
Acceptable.
Yeah. He's a nice guy. Acceptable, yeah.
To be honest, you would be a better host than him, in my opinion.
I mean, everybody would be.
I think if I was hosting a funeral, maybe, but...
Well, that's the wrap up. This is the funeral I'll say at the end
We're
of
gonna
the
go get a
show
wrap. We're gonna get a
of
wrap.
day 14. Thank you so much for watching. Keep climbing that mountain and do your best. That's all we can expect from ourselves. We love you very much. See you Monday. Have a nice one. You did.